It's good. Okay.
So if you're on the live stream, watching now for the meeting, please go ahead and go to the comments section, write in your name that you were present. That's how we will calculate that you are in this meeting as well. You'll do that as well when we go to a vote. Go ahead and write yes or no when we get to that point for the vote, and that will be calculated as well. Thank you.
Okay, welcome everyone, both in person and on live through live stream. Thank you for giving us your time. The sign-up sheet will continue to go forward, and as Pastor Mike mentioned, those on live stream, please write the names of those who are attending. There may be 2 or 3 people attending with you. Make sure we get all the names so that we know how many votes are coming in that manner. All right, Pastor Mike, would you begin by leading us in prayer, please?
Absolutely. The Lord be with you. Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to think about the ways you are doing ministry in this place, and an opportunity that you have shown us. Allow us to discern your will here and to be guided by your Holy Spirit. Be with us always. In this prayer and those things in our hearts and minds, we lift up to your heavenly throne. And in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, this special meeting of the congregation of Trinity Lutheran Church is now called to order. And I'll ask you to go to slide 2, please. Okay. As members, we have a vision of Trinity, a strong, thriving congregation where leaders in faith come to train alongside our people, and all are fully fed in heart, mind, and spirit to love and trust God while serving others. We fuel that vision through prayer, people, and funds. This is the heart of what we're here to talk about today. Slide 3, please. In January this year, we approved a deficit budget, trusting that God would provide clear direction for supporting his mission in this place. Frankly, we've struggled. Staffing has been cut to the bare bone. Staff who have left have not been replaced. Programs have been trimmed significantly. Pastor Mike is stretched to the limit, and volunteers have spent hours of time keeping things going, but it's not enough. The Finance Committee and the Church Council have run down every possibility for refinancing our current mortgage, applying for a new mortgage, etc., hoping to create working capital to revitalize our programming and give us the means to support additional paid staff. None of those would get us to where we need to be. I'd like you to join me in showing our appreciation to our finance manager, Brian Creelman, treasurer, Jeff Hafley, and the other members of our finance committee, Kevin Engelhart and Ron Swars, for their many, many hours of hard work and their continued efforts on our behalf. Slide 4, please. I see God's hand at work in what is today an opportunity to fuel the vision and revitalize his mission here, brought about through some unique circumstances. First, we've been given a proposal by 2 faithful Trinity families to access $260,000 now and repay it over a 10-year period of time at a simple interest rate of 2%. These members are committed to God's work done in and through Trinity. They are making these funds available so that staff can be hired and vital programming can be created, attracting people throughout our region to this church home. We'll be voting on this opportunity in just a few minutes. Secondly, the state of Colorado has approved a tax refund to all who pay state income taxes. It is expected that a refund of $750 for an individual and $1,500 for a married couple filing jointly will be received before the end of August. If 60 member households were to commit this refund to Trinity, we could retire our Thrivent mortgage by the end of this calendar year, easing our financial burdens tremendously. This is unexpected money that was not taken into account when we made our pledge decisions. A one-time gift opportunity while continuing to make our pledge commitments is what I'm asking you to consider. For those who do not pay Colorado state income taxes, I would invite your deep reflection of what might be possible as a one-time gift in this moment in time.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And so you guys know how I am about money. I've been really honest about it. I won't ask you for a dime. You know, I got affected as a young father with a preemie son, with a pastor who I felt like was just looking for money and wasn't committed at all to the place where he was a pastor, but just trying to bolster the money in that place. I've been brutally honest about it. But I'm committed to what we're about here. I'm committed to the ministry that we're doing here. I'm trusting God and a little less trusting Governor Polis that he'll follow through on what he has said publicly that will come through in August. So what I'm doing is directing Brian to increase my giving so that it will reflect that $1,500 increase throughout the rest of the year to then give an extra $1,500 in my annual giving through the rest of the fiscal year. That's one way that you can go about doing this. It doesn't need to be that $1,500. Sometimes that shocks me. The poor dad always pops up in my head. The poor dad always pops up in my head, and I could never imagine giving $1,500, but I can do that in increments, and that's what my wife and I, Holly and I, have agreed that we're going to do to support Trinity and the ministry we're about here. So that's what this letter says that I'll give to Brian.
Thank you, Pastor Mike.
And this is our letter from Bonnie and myself for the $1,500.
If you go to slide 5, please. Let's take a look at some numbers. The left-hand column details our current Thrivent mortgage. The unpaid principal is $310,589. The interest rate is 4.3%. That's fixed compounded. And the remaining term on this mortgage is 4.5 years. The monthly payment is $6,317. The right-hand column details the member's line of credit offer. It's up to $260,000 at a simple interest rate of 2%. The term is up to 10 years. So just an example, if the entire sum of $260,000 were drawn immediately, and we took the full 10 years to pay back the line of credit, the monthly payment would be $2,600. You see, the difference is what creates the working capital to fund staff and programming. As you can also see, if we withdrew the entire $260,000 in the line of credit offer, we could not pay off the Thrivent mortgage in its entirety. The difference is $50,589. That is the amount that could be handled by our members dedicating this year's unexpected Colorado tax refund to Trinity Lutheran Church. Next slide, please. Of all the options carefully considered and analyzed fully, the Finance Committee recommended to Church Council that the 2% line of credit of $260,000 from true faithful Trinity families be accepted. The Church Council approved this recommendation and has called today's special congregational meeting to vote on this proposal. I would now entertain a motion to accept this offer as described. That's Stuart Sussman for the record. Is there a second? The second was Delaney. Thank you. Now, let's have some discussion. I know there are questions. I know.
I have a weird request.
Yes.
Can I get a second by someone who is not considered a staff member?
Okay. We have
Thank
Rick Pillay seconding. Thank you, Rick.
You can vote, but I would rather.
Thank you both. All right, it's now time for discussion, conversation, questions. And I'm going to ask you to use the mic so the people on live stream can hear you.
I live stream. Is this an all or nothing? For example, if we take the $260,000 from the wonderful members who have offered it, but we get, say, only $10,000 worth of tax refunds, so we cannot pay off the full Thrivent mortgage, where does that leave us? And is that a possibility, or is that out of the question? Is it an all or nothing?
It's not all or nothing, and I'll let Jeff, our treasurer, speak a little further to that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. Yeah, I've got dozens of spreadsheets where I've looked at lots of different scenarios from this and the mortgages. Just as a little background information, we applied for refinancing with Thrivent and got several offers from them, as well as applied for a new mortgage from a local bank for comparison purposes to see how those would play out, what they could do, offer funds for us to help cover some additional staffing, and those deals just didn't quite cut it. They were at 5 and 5.5% interest at higher interest rates for 10 years or 15 years. Some of them were adjustable rate mortgages, and as you know, in today's environment, that's not trending well for an adjustable rate. So we looked at those. Then we had this offer of the line of credit, and so the line of credit is just that. It gives us the flexibility to draw as needed to help cover expenses for bringing on additional staff. Just some numbers in relationship to what we have today. With our current mortgage, without adding staff, the current mortgage would be repaid in 4.5 years with a total interest over those 4.5 years of $32,000. Okay, that's without adding any additional staffing. Just if we keep going and totally burn out Pastor Mike, which is probably not a good option. In a reasonable case scenario, or what's being decided here, is if we accept that line of credit, if we get the matching, or if we get the Tabor funds to pay off the mortgage with the line of credit, the mortgage would be, paid off totally, the current one with Thrivent, and the line of credit would be paid back in 6.5 years, with a total interest over those 6.5 years of $25,000. Okay, so that's 6.5 years versus 4.5 years with no staffing. $25,000 of interest versus $32,000 of interest. So it's less interest overall, and we get to add staff. Now that's the scenario we'd like to see happen. If it doesn't, if we don't get any TABOR funds at all, contributions, incremental TABOR funds, but we accept the line of credit, we would be debt-free after 10 years after paying down the line of credit. And over the 10 years, it'd be $52,000 total interest that has been paid. So an incremental $20,000 of interest over 10 years, so $2,000 a year incremental. And we would be able to bring on an additional staff, basically to replace Missy's position that we've not been able to fill, so with current finances. So I hope those numbers kind of make it a little clearer as to why we think, why I think and council agrees that this is a great opportunity for Trinity to be moving our ministry forward. So, yeah, Kev. Oh.
We have here, then in front, Kevin.
Is Kevin going to add to that?
I am, yeah.
Because I have a question off that. So
Okay.
you want me to ask the question first?
Go ahead and ask and see if I can add to that.
So, Jeff, it sounds like you have a worst case, best case, and target scenario.
Yes.
Is that plan put together? Is there something on paper that we can see?
Yeah, I have. I've got spreadsheets that show the breakdown on a yearly basis as to how the draw on the line of credit would work under different scenarios.
Different question, though. So when we go into this, there's got to be a plan to pay it back. You don't go into debt without a plan to pay it back. Is that plan in place?
That plan, since it is a line of credit, that's one advantage of this line of credit is that it's a very flexible repayment deal that we can adjust as we go along. And so the difference between my quote-unquote best case scenario and my worst case scenario assumes that if we get into this, we don't get any TABOR funds, we don't get any growth whatsoever all in the congregation. We basically are stagnant, if you will. We can still bring on, that scenario still allows us to bring on an extra staff member and then pay it down over 10 years. And we start off with paying it off presumably in 6.5 years, but we can push that out over a 10-year period.
So presumably bringing on the extra staff is going to provide an additional return as well. I mean, at some point we have to go beyond what we're doing now in order to make up $260,000 in 10 years, right? So at some point we've got to have some growth. We're kind of moving from, we're getting through this transition to, hey, we're looking long term now.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure the long term's
and
in
actually
place.
that worst case scenario I laid out is no growth whatsoever. We have an additional staff member, but no membership growth, what's construction out back here and around the community, boy,
and that worst case
additional
was
programming and just excitement of the congregation of what we're doing, hopefully will.
So I can speak
God
to,
can see
I can speak to the ideas behind a new staff person, and it's absolutely around growth. It's all about the idea of having someone who can focus on many of the things that I'm only able to have moments to put to. And so someone who can fully support the work that's happening with, say, Kid Venture, and what a new design, the person I'm talking with, is what a new design of like Sunday school and children's and youth education expanded is going to look like here. And it's not going to look like 100% like it used to look like, because it's different people, but it's going to be a growth model that I believe is going to work with someone who is passionate about youth and young adult ministry, someone who is close to that demographic now, and someone who wants to delve in and really dig into what it means to be part of this community and to share this community with other people. And even me, like this morning, having a conversation with one of the board members of that HOA about getting them back into here to have their meetings here. And so that sort of thing starting to stir. And he said, well, the last time our person called you, you said you weren't having meetings there. Well, yeah, it was the middle of COVID, and everybody was running around crazy, and our Senate was saying have no outside people who aren't part of the community framework have meetings in your building. Well, those things are all gone. Well, we're still concerned about COVID, but those concerns about opening up our place are gone. And so all of the conversations, I can tell you, like almost all of the conversations we're having are about how we can utilize all the assets we have to connect deeper into our community and to start bringing in people who otherwise haven't been here before and have conversations with people who have been here in the past who might come back. That help?
Before we continue, I want to recognize Kevin and let him speak.
I was just going to add to that, Dave. Thanks for asking that question. Our responsibility on the Finance Committee was to right-size our expenses to our membership. Okay, so this line of credit was intended to help reduce the pressure of the payments on the loan. We're not trying to add more debt. To your question, if we don't get enough, there is some combination where we pay down 6 more months and then use the remainder of the line of credit to pay the loan off. The goal is to pay the loan off, reduce the monthly amount that we pay and to our building for the mortgage, and free up money for staff so that we can grow programs and grow the mission of this church. It's absolutely, the mission is to grow by using money to pay down what's our biggest burden right now. So it's just cheaper money with more flexibility without the fees of refinancing, whatever. So all he said is exactly right. But sooner or later, the way you manage your money is by adding members and adding pledges. And you do that by adding programs and services that draw people to this church besides the community that we've tried to build. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Kevin. That's exactly what I'm looking for. We can go ahead and Governor Polis comes through. We're good. If he doesn't, we'll split the difference.
Yeah, the last time I checked, the state legislature had already approved that payback, so I think we don't even have to count on Governor Polis at this point.
It's always good to have somebody to blame, right?
Yeah, it's always good to have somebody to blame, yeah.
Go ahead.
Does the line of credit include some kind of protection for the church against having the line of credit called? In other words, can the creditors demand repayment of the loan before 10 years?
Yeah, let's let Kevin speak to that.
It's very creative, but it's going to come out of a donor advised fund, a lot of it. And if it doesn't get paid back, it's going to end up being a donation. So the requirements and restrictions on the loan are just pay us back when you have the money at this point. I mean, this is people trying to be faithful, right? And sooner or later, it's someone saying, I want to stop talking about money and start getting down to the business of doing church here. And that's where we're headed. That's why those donations / loans came in. They came in because it's as a loan, because it's the right thing to do. It's to say, let's all come together and reduce the talk and the burden about paying loans. And to the extent that the whole congregation come together and get those paid off, that's awesome. If for some reason everything goes bad, they're going to end up being contributions. Does that make sense?
Other questions? Anything of a question come in as comments from the live stream? Okay, I'm looking around. Yes.
Just a comment, that is a super awesome deal that we're getting. That is like a no-brainer. And I would like to commend the Finance Committee for coming up with this and working, and as well as the membership for having such a beneficent gift to all of us. That's awesome.
Absolutely. You know, you might remember when I made the first announcement of our special meeting, I couldn't talk about this without getting choked up. I mean, 2 families are putting $260,000 into the ministry of Trinity Lutheran Church because they believe this place has been created by God, and God intends us to thrive and do his work here, right where we're planted. So thank you to those families. Thanks to all of you for recognizing how powerful that really is. Are we ready to vote? One more
There's
thing.
one more thing I'd like to add, and that is, if anybody would like to see my spreadsheets, I'm more than happy to dig into all the gory details. I was advised not to put them up on slides.
You saw just a little taste as the background of one of the slides. It's like, oh my gosh, it goes on for 20 pages, and then another one for 20 pages, and on and on.
It's not quite that
Thank you,
bad.
Jeff, though. Stuart, you had a question or comment? Okay. Yeah, we
you
already
call the
have
question?
the,
Yeah, Stuart, you can call the question.
By the way, if anyone else has a donor advised fund and wants to see how that works and wants to be part of that, I'd be happy to talk to them about it also.
Jeff?
How are we getting the word out to all members, friends here, to let them know of the opportunity when the Tabor refund comes, that they have that option? Because I don't know that everybody's on the email, whatever, we need to do an all-hands effort to spread the word, I guess I'm saying.
Yeah, I would say our normal communications we're using to get the information out, but if you see members who you think aren't connected, older folks, like I talked to George Jacobson just the other day and sort of gave him a heads up of it. We're going to be actually celebrating something in his ministry life here really soon. And so had a conversation with him about it, and he was like, it sounds like a great idea. So those sorts of communications with folks who otherwise aren't connected. But George, they watch worship every Sunday though, so they do the technology bit.
Bonnie, before you go
Yes.
on, I just want to clarify. We're going to get $260. We're going to pay the mortgage down, so we have $50 left owed, right?
we have an opportunity, if we choose to put that wholly toward the mortgage, we don't have to. We
Okay.
can just feather our budget, if you will, withdrawing what we need to cover the expenses. It's
Right.
not an all or nothing proposition.
Okay, so if we use it towards the mortgage and we pay the $260 toward that, then we have $50 left over, our mortgage payment doesn't change. Is that correct?
No. If we use the 260 plus the 50 that we would get, if we can get the Tabor contributions, then we can pay off the mortgage. It is totally zeroed.
There is
Right,
no mortgage.
But if we
we
don't get the extra 50
If
from
we
the
don't get the extra
congregation,
50, yes, if we don't get the extra 50, if we have just the 260, again, there's a couple different scenarios. What's that? Okay, yeah, what Kevin
Thank
said,
you.
8
That's
more
what I
months of
thought, Kevin.
payments.
Thanks.
Yeah, right. It gives us some flexibility as to how we pay off part of the mortgage. You can get it paid off early, in addition to, there's a lot of scenarios, and so, yeah. But
If I could add to that, we do have the option to re-amortize the loan based on paying a lot of it down. So the monthly payment could go down significantly from $63.17.
Oh, that's one of the possibilities. It may not be the best financially, so if that's the opportunity that.
There are so many permutations. If we get one new family in the next 6 months, if we get 4 new families in the next 6 months, if we get 100 new families, I mean, it goes on. And we're not asking you to decide those things. The question is, do we accept this offer from our 2 Trinity families of this line of credit for $260,000 at a simple interest rate of 2% with an opportunity to repay it over a 10-year period of time? So we have a motion to approve, and we have a second. So, let's vote. So I'm going to ask you, those in favor, signify by raising your hand and saying aye. It will take a minute. We have to count them. So Tamara is our secretary, and she's counting. And Delaney, if you will count the votes on live stream, now's your time to vote. So if there are 2 people in your live stream watching session, you get 2 votes. So make sure each one, because you may not see things the same way. So make sure. Right now we're counting the aye votes.
I see currently, I mean, you got to do the other section, but I see a unanimous vote of the
Okay.
poll list.
We have those, all those who vote nay. Now raise your hands. And on live stream, any nay votes?
Delaney, you're none?
None? Okay. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, the last slide, Delaney, please. Let me just say to those of you here with me today and those on live stream, thank you, thank you, thank you. You have all been so faithful, so generous. I want you to look out these windows at the beautiful new playground, these windows at our beautiful patio. I ask you to think about what it would be like to free ourselves from our mortgage debt and use our resources to reach even deeper into our community to share the good news. Remember, this church was planted in the middle of a cow pasture. And it was through the generosity of another member of Trinity. That is our Trinity tradition, to live generously. Thank you. I will now accept a motion to adjourn the meeting. Terry Dayton, is there a second? Eileen Rice? This meeting is now officially adjourned.